There are always ways to combine our favorite RPGs with different resources or accessories whenever we feel that the core options are not enough or we wish to get something more out of them. In today's video, I want to show a particular combination of resources with the Dragonbane RPG by Free League Publishing and a resource dedicated to creating sandbox areas for you to explore. This is called the Sandbox Creator by Shield Dice Studio, and I want to show how these two resources, or this game and this resource, can combine to add more variety to your solo play in Dragonbane. Just a couple things before we begin a small demonstration. I'll be using a main PC, a fighter created with the core rules, and a spellcaster NPC, following the recommendations for NPCs in the solo supplement for Dragonbane. Their skills will be at 12 and their attributes or stats will be at 10. For the demonstration, we'll do a brief point crawl of just 5 areas. I will determine the last area as the quote-unquote boss or treasure room, and we will mostly follow the Dragonbane rules, along with the Sandbox Creator by Shield Dice. So we'll make a quick cut and then move on to the demonstration. So Shield Dice Sandbox Creator mainly uses a deck of playing cards, and the idea is that you lay out a series of cards, and each of these, depending on the type of sandbox, as well as the suit and the number, represent a specific area within the sandbox. You are free to indicate if the areas are locked or have easy access between them or not. So this allows for a great deal of flexibility when playing solo, especially games like Dragonbane, which directly reference sort of going from point to point in the Alone in Deepfall Breach supplement. So essentially what we're doing is complementing Dragonbane's point crawl system with another point crawl system that can add a bit more detail. So again, we'll design a 5-area point crawl, and then we will use some of Dragonbane's rules to kind of demonstrate how they work together. So the first step to creating our sandbox will be to roll a d6, because we have 6 categories of sandbox. So here it goes. A 1. So, with the result of a 1, we get a verdant sandbox, and this usually represents forests or jungles. And so for our quest, I've decided to send our party here, these two fellows, to retrieve a relic known as the Chthonian Heart, a relic which a local lord wants to secure for himself, whether to secure power or just to keep it in his private collection. So, now that we have established this, we will draw from the cards, we will draw from the deck of cards, and that will give us a list of different areas that we will traverse to, and we will supplement this with Dragonbane's rules, or rather it's the other way around. We will use Dragonbane's rules to direct our play, and then we will supplement it with the Sandbox Creator to add details to the scenery. So now that we have drawn our first card, the result according to the Sandbox Creator is 7 of Hearts, a bamboo forest with clear pools. Here I've placed the 7 of Spades, which will be, according to this, dark timberlines and growing rot. So pretty ominous location, and I will make the notation shortly. But this is our starting area. This is the end goal area. And we will create 4, potentially, other areas rolling on Dragonbane's exploration tables, its included oracles, and every tool we can get a hand on from Dragonbane's rules. And we will use this to add flavor, and other details to the locations that we'll traverse. I say we will potentially add 4 more areas because depending on some of the actions we take in Dragonbane, other areas could be uncovered, and that could prolong the adventure. So if I notice that the adventure is taking too long, I'll reach a stopping point and just indicate it accordingly. But for now, this is where the adventure begins. Now, to add tension to our proceedings, Dragonbane advises us to roll a d6 to come up with a sort of threat that will be constantly growing and drawing closer to us the longer the adventure continues, and in the event that we make mistakes. So, rolling will give us a 3. So, according to this, 3 is a known enemy seeks you out. When this threat triggers, they catch up. So, we have an enemy that we are both aware of and that they are aware of us. And we will use this black die as a counter to represent their presence looming ever closer to the party. Now, we also need to come up with the inhabitants of the overall area. This is a forested area, very lush, filled with greenery. So, let's see. That is a 16, and according to the table in Dragonbane, that means cultists. So, additionally to this known enemy, the forests are overrun or populated by a group of cultists that may not take kindly to us trespassing onto their territory. So now that we have this information, we will also roll a d4 to sort of generate other points of interest in our first tile here in this forested area. Okay, so now we're rolling a d4, and it comes out at a 4. Now, this first indicates we need to add 4 elements to this first location. So we have 4 elements. The first one is an oddity. So let me just make a quick note. Second one is content. Third one is another oddity. And the last one, a danger. Usually, this is a way that the game has to sort of give the players different challenges so as to not always come up with combat or traps or something of that nature. But I have found that it's not always good to include everything the rules tell you, and you're definitely free to omit certain things if you think that it doesn't make sense. So I'll just make a quick pause to order our play space and then come back with the final decision. So interestingly, when rolling to define the features, it happened that the items on the list sort of made sense and kind of combined together, meshed together pretty well. So we rolled a magic mirror for the first oddity, then a sealed antechamber for the contents, then the second oddity is esoteric architecture, and the danger was arcane trickery. So you can actually combine this. Not all results will mesh equally well, but this at least gives us a solid groundwork to kind of include the set dressing, or to flesh out the location's set dressing. So we have a sealed antechamber with a very peculiar and esoteric architecture, style that's uncommon to the land. And it's also protected, and the thing that it's protected, the thing that's locked inside, is a magic mirror. Now, could the magic mirror be related to our quest? And we can consult an oracle, a yes or no oracle in Dragonbane. We roll a 6, and I believe a 6 in the oracle is an extreme yes. So if that's the case, yes it is. It's an extreme yes. So that means that the mirror is related to the quest. Now, we could make the first skill check of this playthrough, of this little demonstration. Does the character know this? With a skill check of 12 or under, and she rolls a 7. So yes, our spellcaster knows that this mirror is needed at some other point in our trek to unlock or to reach the Chthonian heart. Okay, now the spellcaster has been able to identify the nature of the mirror, but there was also the topic of the danger that we had uncovered, which was the arcane trickery. So now we need to see if the spellcaster is smart enough to bypass or to overcome the trickery. 3. She very much is, without breaking a sweat. Okay, now that we have successfully bypassed the arcane trickery of this area, our spellcaster quickly obtains the mirror, and she tells us that this mirror will be important when we want to obtain the Heart of Chthon. So now we need to determine, is the path forward obstructed? 1, that's an extreme no, so the way is open. So now we go back to our sandbox creator and we unveil our next card. Oh, actually, a little mistake here. In order to move to the next card, we can actually shuffle it back into the deck, and we can actually draw a new one. So before we actually move on, we follow Dragonbane's Journey's rules, which state that for this sort of trek, we will roll our bushcraft skill. Now, our fighter here has a bushcraft of 5, so he's not the brightest. So I think our NPC is gonna have to handle it. And she does. She does succeed, so thanks to her, we are able to move into this next area, and now we can actually unveil it. and we can discover what it actually is. A Jack of Clubs. So according to this, the Jack is a sudden rainforest filled with chasms. So let's make a quick note of that. So, we took one oddity in the content from the Contents Oracle, and for the oddity we have a shifting architecture, which is a result of 15 on the table, and for the contents we have fresh corpses with a result of 10. So right out of the gate we are encountering some more spooky stuff, and danger thankfully hasn't progressed too much because we have been successful in our endeavor, but since we moved to a different area, it is logical that we should at least advance it. Eventually we'll have to deal with it, but we could sort of stall it if we do really well or if we overcome particular challenges. So now we have to decide the shifting architecture and the corpses. What do we make of them? And for that we can use the inspiration table on the rulebook to get more information or more details as to what happened with them. So we'll roll on those and we'll come back. The reason the next stop in our journey is shifting is due to a creature that's probably prowling around or sort of tracking our movement. And maybe they are also the cause for the corpses we see. 3 on the oracle means no. So the creature is not the cause of this. So it's likely the cultists. It seems like they are also in pursuit of this relic. And so we have to try to find a way to jump ahead of them. And so for this, we're gonna do a spot hidden roll. We're gonna try to do it with our main character. He has a 10 in this skill, so 50% chance of noticing something. He does. We did this to perform the search action of the solo rules, and so when we do this, we roll a d10 and consult the table to see what we find. So now we roll a d10, and the result is a 3, and a 3 means a secret path. So our die landed on 2. That means we have 2 new waypoints. Okay, so now we need to figure out if we can explore these 2 additional regions that we have unlocked in the previous tile or the previous point. Another thing that I had forgotten to add previously are these markers here, and that's just to remind me of the shifts that journeys in Dragonbane are supposed to account for. Now we have to see with our bushcraft ability if we are able to move on to one of these 2. We're gonna decide which one we want to go into. Oh, actually, I also forgot. We have corpses, and we can actually search them. Now, in the case of just rummaging through things like corpses, we actually have a simple d10 die roll here. And the result is a 9. And in the table in Dragonbane, 9 means we have 1 treasure card. We've determined that the treasure we got is 4d6 gold coins. So that's pretty nifty. So let's see what we get. Let's grab these here, plus R die here. And let's give it a quick roll. Let's see what we get. 20. Wow, that's a pretty good sum of gold coins. So, good for us. We managed to get some pretty good sum of gold, which will come in handy for any future expenses, provided the adventurers survive. Now, on to what we're really curious about, and that is, can we get to the next area without incurring any sort of penalty? Also, keep in mind that scavenging doesn't take time, so it doesn't advance the threat clock. So now, bushcraft, and we fail. That'll be a mishap. So let's check the table for the mishaps during travel, and that will require a d12. So let's find my d12 here. I'll use another one. And that is a result of 6 here. So, a 6. In the mishaps, we are attacked by a mosquito swarm. A large swarm of mosquitoes or gnats attacks the group, driving everyone crazy with their biting and buzzing. All player characters without a cloak become angry. So that's a pretty harsh condition to have. So we will unveil the one of the cards, and it's a 4 of clubs. Let's see what it says. It says tangled dark wilderness of evergreens. So it's a lot of evergreen plants, and this is what we're gonna delve into. So as you can see, there's a lot of flavor that can be added this way to the point crawl system in Dragonbane using this other resource. And of course you can roll on the area table to add even more detail and make the surrounding areas much more lived in, much more vibrant for your gameplay. So we have the tangled evergreen, and we've also flipped the next shift from our counter. So now we would be in the, I think, evening, because the afternoon was spent dealing with the mosquitoes. So as you can see, the adventure is progressing. We are encountering different challenges, and also our thread counter has moved up by 1. So then the enemy that we have been chased by is catching up, and we are now faced with this tangled evergreen. And as we explore, we stumble upon a narrow staircase. Interesting. So we now have a narrow staircase in the middle of this tangled mess of evergreen. So let's see now with a d4, what exactly do we find? Okay, luckily for us, the die rolled on a 1. So now we have a 2. And a 2, I believe, is content. No, it's actually environment. So for the environment, luminescent spores. Okay, so let's note that. Okay. So now we are in this tangled evergreen with a narrow staircase and luminescent spores. What else is there? Are there cultist signs around? Extreme yes, there are cultist signs. How many? Moderates, so a few. Maybe 2 to 3. We are not very powerful and we are outnumbered. So we are going to try and sneak. We'll have our spellcaster try to guide him. So she's gonna roll. And barely. She barely manages. Actually, no. I think she might have missed, but let's double check because other skills are at 6, and she's not exactly proficient at sneaking, so no. We do not sneak by them. And so it's likely we are going to go into combat. Okay, so now we will have a brief overview of combat. I don't have the Dragonbane initiative cards, but if you have other Free League initiative cards, then you can use those. They're pretty much the same. I'll be using the Forbidden Lands ones, since they're the only thing I have at hand at the moment. But we'll draw one card for the main character, for the fighter, one card for our NPC companion, and one card for the cultist group. And so we will see what their initiative is. So for my character, it's a 10, we're at the bottom. Our companion is at the top, and the cultists go right before we do. So here's how it's going to go. So I'll spellcaster, then it's going to be the cultist, and then our player character. Okay, so 1, 9, and 10. So now that we know how initiative is going to play out for this round, we are going to start by mentioning that this cultist right here is a melee fighter. This one is a ranged, and this one is a melee fighter as well. So ranged, melee, melee. And we will use the solo rule attack roll, or the attack tables, to figure out what they do. And obviously they can only do an action. Movement takes their full action, so they cannot attack and move on the same turn. But our spellcaster is going to cast a spell, and we're going to use the same NPC action table here to figure out what exactly she does as a magical attacker. And for that, we're going to roll a d6. And she casts a magic bolt. Inflicts 2d6 damage against a single target. Okay, so the attack, she's going to target the ranged opponent. And that opponent is going to take 7 damage. So the first one is at 7, took 7 damage. And that's her action for the turn. So now the cultists are gonna move. So for the cultists, we're gonna use the minion template on the book, and states that their relevant skills are at a 12. So for this guy to hit, they would have to roll a 12. And they do. And they do 2d6 damage to our spellcaster, who has 10 health. Ooh! That's an 8 for our caster. So our caster is now at 2 out of 10 health. So she's pretty beat up. Cultist range is at 3. Nope. No, it's not 3. 5 out of 12. And our cultists who are in melee are at full health with 12 HP each. They don't have armor, so they don't reduce damage. Second cultist is gonna move. Who do they target? 1 to 2, they target the main PC. 3 to 4, they target the caster. They target the caster because of course. So they are going to move. Their movement is 10, so they can move 5 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not enough. And this guy is also gonna move, but they're gonna target the main PC. So they're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right here. Okay, so now our main character has an option. He can wait, or he can close the distance. I'm going to say he holds his action, so he can actually act first, or he can act faster next round. So with that, first round is over. Now let's get initiative again. Okay, so now for initiative, we get a 4. Our companion gets a 10, so they are at the very bottom. And the cultists are again at a 9. The cards reappeared, but this time we get the jump. So we get to trade with the cultists because we want them to come to us. So I'm going to start with the melee fighter here who targeted our main guy. 2, 4, 6. And that's their action. They cannot move. 2, 4. That's their action. They cannot move. And he is going to try and hit. Who is he going to hit? Our main PC. They're going to try and hit the main PC. So they have to roll. Let's say they have to roll. Yeah, they have to roll 12 or less. They hit. So now our guy has the option to dodge the bolt, but if he does dodge the bolt, he is not going to be able to attack the ranged, rather the melee opponents. So I'm gonna say he's gonna save this action and not try to dodge. So these guys will do 6 damage to our hero, dropping him down to 3. So things are not looking good. But the cultists, whoops, the cultists have gone already. Now it's our hero's turn. He's going to attack, and he has he has spears and swords at a 14. He's wielding a actually, I forgot to mention, he has an armor rating of 4. He has a chainmail. He also cannot sneak or evade. He has a bane on those. But he does have 4 damage reduction, so the 6 damage drops down to actually 2. So he is quite safe. Thank goodness. So Now, we are going to try and hit with 14 or less. And we do. So that means we do 2d6 damage with the broadsword plus a d4 bonus damage. And since these guys moved, they cannot try to dodge. So again, we roll 2d6 for damage plus 1d4 bonus damage. And let's see, we're going to attack the guy that's directly in front of us. Let's see how much we can actually hit him for. So that's 9 and 4. 13, I believe. Yes, that's 13 damage. Just double checking, but yes, that's 13 damage. And they don't have armor, so one of these guys immediately bites the dust. They are over. Now, since they have had their first loss, we are going to see if that's enough to scare them off, and they're going to roll on a attribute check, in this case a willpower, to see if they withstand or if they actually want to run. Their attributes are at 10, so they need a 10 or less to stay in the fight, and they don't. Against all odds, they flee. That kill was sufficiently gruesome for our heroes to scare the cultists off this time, but that doesn't mean they are out of the woods yet, quite literally. And so their trek into this realm continues. But I think this is where I'm gonna stop, because the video has gone on for way too long. But hopefully this was useful to you if you want to sort of enhance your solo Dragonbane experience with the resources. I'll be sure to put a link to the supplement that I used in the description box below the video, so you can check it out and support Shield Dice Studio, who make other interesting supplements for role-playing games. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to follow.